up, students? So today our activity is the Read Aloud, Think Aloud activity. And we're going back to our unit and our topic, the Cold War. More specifically, we're going to talk about the nuclear weapons that were developed either before or during the Cold War. So the text I'm going to read you guys is a few quotes from historical figures that either helped develop nuclear weapons in some way, or they offer their perspective on nuclear weapons and the use of them. As I read the quotes, think about the context of which these individuals are in, and write down what you think about each quote, just honestly what you think about it. I'll provide visuals of the people that give the quote, so you can have some idea of who these people are. So with that, you're going to just hear my voice while we talk about each quote, and then we'll go to the next activity. Alright, so our first quote is coming from Albert Einstein. And this is what he had to say about the atomic bomb. He said, "I do not believe that civilization will be wiped out in a war fought with the atomic bomb. Perhaps 2/3 of the people of the earth will be killed." So it's actually kind of not a funny quote, but kind of an ironic quote to say, not the whole world, but only 2/3. And he did help develop the bomb, so this is pretty prevalent to what we're talking about. So our next quote is from Margaret Thatcher. She was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1979 to 1990. And here's what she has to say about nuclear weapons. She said, "A world without nuclear weapons would be less stable and more dangerous for all of us." So that's an interesting quote to say and to think about, something you guys can write down about that quote. Would the world be better off with or without nuclear weapons? So our next quote comes from the man who's credited for ending the Cold War, and that is Ronald Reagan. This was given during his State of the Union address in 1984. And this is what he had to say. He said, "A nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. The only value in our two nations possessing nuclear weapons is to make sure they never be used. But then, would it not be better to do away with them entirely?" So, of course, he's referring to the Soviet Union, because both, going back to our lessons, were both the superpowers of the world at the time. And he brings up a good point. I mean, we're the only two nations with nuclear weapons, so wouldn't it be better just to do away with them? And we don't have to worry about destroying the whole world. So write down what you think about that. Alright, so our last quote comes from Stephen Hawking. For some of you students that don't know who Stephen Hawking is, he's a very famous physicist and cosmologist, which means he studies things like black holes and even time travel. So his quote goes as follows. He said, "Although September 11th was horrible, it didn't threaten the survival of the human race like nuclear weapons do." So that's a pretty powerful statement. I mean, living through September 11th and be able to say something like that, takes a lot of guts to say something like that. And actually, this quote actually goes into one of the text-to-self examples I'm going to show you guys. So with that, we're going to go into our next activity, which is going to be our text-to-text. Okay, so for our activity, the Read Aloud, Think Aloud, we need to come up with a text-to-text, a text-to-self, and then a text to the real world, and how that relates to you. So each student needs to have their own text-to-text, text-to-self, text to the world. And so I'm going to go and use myself as an example to just help you guys out, give you an idea. So for me, my text-to-text, whenever I think about the Cold War and nuclear weapons and things like that, it has to be the graphic novel, The Dark Knight Returns. And it's kind of ironic, this it's called a graphic novel, but it's a comic book. But in this, this was actually written during the Cold War. This was written in 1986. So it's actually pretty relevant to what we're talking about. This is the writer, Frank Miller, is writing what he's seeing right now. And the scene that always gets me in this graphic novel is when Superman tries to stop a nuclear warhead from the Soviet Union. And lucky for you guys, they actually made this into a video, a movie now. And I'm actually going to show you the clip of Superman trying to stop a nuclear bomb. And it's actually pretty graphic, so if you have, you know, if you're not into that sort of thing, probably just look away, but it's pretty cool, so check it.
We are getting reports that the missile has changed course and will now detonate over an...
So not bad, right? I mean, Superman, is Superman. He is the superhero. He's the only reason why we have superheroes. He's the original. He's the guy we think of when we think of superheroes. He's Superman. And to see him get messed up by a Russian nuclear weapon like that, it kind of, if you're a comic book fan, or even if you're not really into comic books, it's kind of like, whoa, like, this weapon just freaking destroyed Superman. Imagine what it would do to us regular people. And as a kid, that's what it kind of reminded me of. But for you guys, you need to come up with your own text. It can be anything. It can be a book. It could be a comic book. It can be a movie. It can be whatever. As long as it's along the lines of a text. So come up with your own ideas and write about what these quotes and what nuclear weapons kind of make you feel like, and find something to relate it to your text. Alright, so for your text itself, you need to come up with a personal association that nuclear weapons and even just the Cold War reminds you of in your own life. And this can be anything. It can be numerous of things that you can think of. For me, my personal association with nuclear weapons in the Cold War, it kind of reminds me of when I was in middle school and 9/11 happened. Not necessarily the same amount of power of destruction, because obviously nuclear weapons have more power than airplanes, but just that uncertainty that that anything could happen. And living during the Cold War, that's how it was. That's how it was after World War II. You just didn't know what was going to happen. Any day, missiles would just start flying off and blow up both countries, blow up the whole world. And so I just remember being in middle school, remembering that, dang, I don't know what's going to happen next. This is crazy. Actually, I work with people in Washington, D.C., and I talked to them, asked them what happened during 9/11, what was going on here in Washington, D.C. I can imagine it'd be pretty crazy. And they said basically it was chaos during 9/11 in Washington, D.C. There'd be rumors, oh, there's bombs here, there's bombs there. And just the uncertainty of, anything could happen. That's what kind of reminds me, nuclear weapons remind me of 9/11 in that way. That's the only time we've ever felt like that. And I don't think we've felt like that since. So That's my personal association, but you guys need to come up with your own. So go ahead. Alright, so our last text to anything we have to do today is text to world. So what you guys need to do is think of something that you know that nuclear weapons relate to the world today, that's going on right now. So I'm going to take the easy one so you guys can't use it. I'm actually going to take North Korea, what's going on with them right now. Obviously the UN would put sanctions on North Korea because of their nuclear testing that they're doing. And because of that, North Korea is, you know, it seems like every day they're threatening nuclear warfare. They're saying they were aiming missiles at Washington, D.C. and just a bunch of, not empty threats, but it's kind of how the Cold War was. I mean, the Cold War and the nuclear weapons, it was the same thing. We had missiles pointed at each other, empty threats. Oh, we'll do this. If you bomb us, we'll bomb you. And that's what it kind of reminds me of in the world's going on today, North Korea, because they're the ones that keep building nuclear weapons when we're trying to get away from that kind of warfare. But you guys need to come up with your own. And with that, that's the end of this video. It's a pretty long video, like almost 12-13 minutes. So with that, thanks for watching, and make sure you complete your assignments, the text to text, text to self, text to world, and I will see you guys next time. See you later.